Hello again, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am very happy to share with you another video about the speaking section of the TOEFL. Today I'm going to be talking about question type 1 in the speaking section. This type is sometimes referred to as the personal experience question. I'm going to begin the video by talking about the styles of questions that are used in type 1. I'm going to continue by giving you a template that you can use when answering the question, and I will conclude by giving you a sample answer that you can model your own answers after as you practice and on test day. All right, let's get started by talking about question styles. Broadly speaking, there are 4 main styles of question in part 1 of the speaking task. That's important to remember because this is actually one of the parts of the test that ETS has been experimenting with. And by that I mean they've been trying new things in recent years. If you're only studying with older textbooks, you might actually be surprised by the question because it won't resemble the style that the textbook teaches. Hopefully, though, after watching this video, you won't be surprised. That's my goal. All right. So the first style is sometimes referred to as the pure experience style. And the questions go something like this. Describe a time when you felt especially proud of an academic achievement. Explain why you felt that way. I should mention that the question will end with the phrase, include details and examples to support your explanation. That's used at the end of every single Part 1 question. All right, another example is, what is the most memorable experience you have had while on vacation? Why was this experience so memorable? Include details and examples to support your explanation. So the pure experience questions, which have been used by ETS for the longest period of time, ask you to relate an incident from your past. And they ask it to be connected to a specific detail like academic achievement or on vacation, something like that. Now remember that these questions usually refer to growing up or school life or work life. Those are the 3 biggest families. So as you're practicing and as you're studying, practice coming up with stories or lies that relate to memories from school, memories from work, or memories from growing up. And if you keep practicing and you keep coming up with such memories, it'll become easier. And you might even find that some of these memories can be recycled for different question prompts. Now, the second style of question is actually the newest style. This one has appeared quite a lot just in the last 2 years, and it's the 3 choices style. And they go something like this. Which of these methods do you think is the best way to prepare for a test? 1, studying alone. 2, studying with friends. 3, asking a teacher for help. Include details and examples to support your explanation. Or it might go like this. Which of the following, among campus facilities, cost, and location, do you think is most important when choosing a university? Include details and examples to support your explanation. Now, the important thing to know when answering these questions is that you only need to focus on one of the choices. You've only got 45 seconds to answer, so you can't speak about all of them. If you think asking a teacher for help is the best method, just talk about that. Don't talk about how studying alone is bad. Don't talk about how studying with friends is bad. Just talk about asking a teacher for help. Focus on that. You could possibly talk about all three, but you're probably not fluent enough to do that, and it's probably a terrible idea. So take my advice, just pick one and talk about it. Now, sometimes the three choices questions are very clear. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they're not, but learn to recognize them. If you see which of the following among, you should say, aha, this is a three choices question. And don't be surprised. These are the ones that are surprising my students most often, because these are not included in any of the older TOEFL textbooks. I don't even think they include any in the official guide to the TOEFL, because even that's a little bit out of date. So be prepared for the three choices style. Moving on, the next style is the giving advice style. This seems to be the least frequent style, but it does come up now and then. They go something like this. A friend of yours is having frequent disagreements with his parents. What advice would you give your friend about resolving this problem? Or, one of your friends is extremely nervous when giving presentations in his classes. What would you suggest he do to overcome this fear? Include details and examples to support your explanation. These ones, again, they're always about giving advice to a friend, and they're usually about school life, work life, growing up. Be prepared for that. It's not a promise, it's not a guarantee, but it's a strong likelihood. Moving on to the last question style. These ones I call the opinion style. These are the independent essay style because they look a lot like independent essay questions. They go something like this. Your university has decided to reduce the amount of money it spends to support sports activities. What is your opinion and why? What is the most important characteristic of a good coworker? Explain why this characteristic is so important. These ones are identical to possible independent essay style questions. That is to say, writing question 2 could look a lot like this. These also look a lot like speaking type 2. Indeed, when you watch the speaking type 2 video, you'll see a lot of overlap. You could get a TOEFL where speaking type 1 and speaking type 2 are very, very similar. It's kind of tricky like that, but if you're prepared, it shouldn't take you by surprise and you should do okay. That's what I think. All right, so those, broadly speaking, are the 4 question styles that you could get. Now, this list may not be comprehensive. You might get something different. Be prepared. If you get something different, please leave a comment below the video and tell me about it. Maybe ETS is trying something new, or maybe I just forgot to include something in this video, but I want to hear about it. Please help me out. Leave a comment below. So moving on. Now that we know the types of questions we might get, we should talk about how to put together our answer. Now, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I love templates. I love structure. And I love it when students memorize a template that they can use on test day. I find that this increases their confidence. And basically, it increases their score. Now, you don't have to use a strict template. You can feel free to freestyle and improvise. But if you're watching my video, I think you want my advice. And my advice is that the template is better than freestyling. Your mileage may vary, as we say in English. So what's the template for speaking type 1? Well, it starts like this, with a main point. Now, there are 4 different question styles, so the main point, it requires a little bit of improvisation. It's going to be different depending on the style of question. But broadly speaking, start with a time when that's for your pure experience, a time when I was very proud of my academic achievement. A time when I overcame an obstacle at work was something like that. Or, in my opinion, it is better to study with a teacher. In my opinion, it is better to study with a group. In my opinion, the most important aspect of a university is its faculty. Or I would advise my friend to ask his parents for advice. I would advise my friend to join a speaking club on campus. I would advise my friend to ask his teacher for help. Something like that. I think that a good coworker is trustworthy. Something like that. That's going to be 1 sentence in your answer. Next, you need a transitional sentence. The easiest one to use is I feel this way for 2 reasons. You can use this with pretty much every single question style. If you want to get a bit more specific, this was memorable for 2 main reasons for your pure experience. This was challenging for 2 main reasons. Or for giving advice questions, I would make this suggestion for 2 main reasons. But if you want to keep it simple and easy, just use the first one. This is continued, or this is followed by the first reason. This is where it gets difficult because this is where you're actually supporting yourself. Start with first. First, and then give me another sentence that begins with to be more specific. I'm going to give you an example of this, a sample answer in just a moment. But next you're talking about the second reason, second and for example. Now, I really like to see it begin with second. Some people like to say moreover or in addition or furthermore. But to me, that doesn't make it abundantly clear that you're actually transitioning into the second reason. So I want to make it easy for the grader, and I just want to use second. First and second. Some people think that's a little bit simplistic and easy, but I like it. So that's my advice to you. You can end with a conclusion, which just repeats your main point, basically. However, that's optional, and you really don't need it. I think that the conclusion should only be used if you're basically finished talking and you still realize, oh shit, there's 5 seconds left and I got to say something. Then you can just repeat your main point with a conclusion. But otherwise, you really don't need it. All right, so that's your template, that's your structure. This can be used basically no matter what the question prompt is about, no matter what the style of the question is, this should work. And to prove my point, I'm going to talk about a question from earlier in the video, and I'm going to give you a complete answer. The question we're dealing with today is, one of your friends is extremely nervous when giving presentations in his classes. What would you suggest he do to overcome his fear? Include details and examples to support your explanation. Here's the sample. Now, I've color-coded it to match the template, and I've underlined and I've used italics to highlight a few things that I'm going to talk about in a moment. But first, I am going to read it, and we'll see if I can finish this one in 45 seconds. I've made this one long, deliberately, in order to represent a sort of perfect answer. Unless you're really good, yours will probably be a bit shorter than mine. I understand that. That's fine. But if you want to see what a perfect answer looks like, it's about this length. All right, I'm going to take a quick drink. And I'm going to read it, and I am going to time it. Let's see. I would advise my friend to join a public speaking club on campus. I would suggest this for two main reasons. First of all, this would give him a chance to talk in front of others without feeling much pressure. To be more specific, he won't be graded on the quality of his presentations, so he can practice this way without worrying that mistakes will affect his academic record. Secondly, other members of the club will likely have experienced some of the same anxieties that he is currently feeling, and they will be able to offer relevant advice and suggestions. For example, when I was in such an organization during my freshman year, I was given a lot of really appropriate tips. As a result, I excelled when presenting in my actual classes. That was 45 seconds exactly. So again, if you speak slower than I do, you'll shorten it, and I'm going to talk in a minute about where you might shorten this. But first of all, a few things. As you can see, I followed the template exactly. Here's my main point. I would advise my friend to join a public speaking club on campus. I continued with my transition. I would suggest this for two main reasons. My first reason begins with first of all and continues with to be more specific. Now, I really like to be more specific because that organizes the answer. Yes, it gives it structure, it gives it flow, but it also gives me time to think of what I'm going to say next. Because a lot of this you're coming up with on the fly. And so some of my students will be like, But instead of saying, I teach them to say, to be more specific. And as they're saying that, they're coming up with the next bit. All right, I begin the second reason with secondly, and I continue with for example. And as I'm saying, for example, I'm coming up with what I'm going to say next. It works. Now, how did I set this answer apart from all the other answers which have a nice template, but they don't get 30 points? Well, a few things. First of all, I've underlined so and. These are conjunctions, and I've used these conjunctions to create compound sentences. Now, I don't want to turn this into a grammar lesson, but basically, conjunctions like so, but, and, yet are really useful for making your grammar a bit more sophisticated. I teach the same technique in the independent writing section, by the way. I could have written just two simple sentences. To be more specific, he won't be graded on the quality of his presentations, period. New sentence, he can practice this way without worrying, but I've used this conjunction to create a compound sentence, which is a bit more specific. I've also used this one to create a compound sentence. I want you to look up that grammar point. I can't teach all the grammar in this video, but I want to hear some compound sentences in your answers. So, but, and, yet, for. Keep that in mind. Next, I've underlined the phrase as a result. This is a transitional phrase, also known as a discourse phrase. Use these in your answer. Other such phrases include in addition, moreover, consequently, in comparison, therefore, however. These give your answer more flow. They make your answer a little bit more sophisticated. You should include them. Next, notice how I've used italics. Here, here, here. These are instances when I was trying to avoid repetition of a word. I didn't want to repeat speak. See how I used speak? I didn't want to repeat that word, so I changed it to talk. Likewise, here I said organization because I didn't want to repeat the word club. Here I used tips because I didn't want to repeat the word advice. Now this, I admit, is really, really hard to do. But keep it in mind as a strategy. Try not to repeat yourself too much. This is an answer about speaking in public, so it would be really easy to use the word speak 5 or 6 times. That's not good. Use it 2 times, use it 3 times, but try to limit the number of times you repeat yourself. Finally, in the last part of the answer, I used a personal experience from my life to support it. That is something you should do in your type 1 answers. Use a personal example, a personal experience. In the pure experience question style, you're going to use that heavily, but you should use it in all of them, including the giving advice one, including the independent essay style one. Use that at least a little bit in your answer every time for type 1. All right, so again, to repeat what you should do when answering these, first of all, use the template. Second of all, compound sentences. Third, transitional phrases. And fourth, a personal experience from your life. If you can do all 4 of those things, you're on track to get a good score in the speaking question 1. All right, I think I'm going to leave it at that, but if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. If you want more of this stuff, please subscribe to the channel. There's videos for all the sections of the test, and you can also visit TOEFLresources.com, which is my main website. If you go there, you can find tons of guides and sample answers. You can also sign up for my speaking or writing evaluation services, and you can get in touch with me. I guess that's everything I want to mention today. Thanks again for watching all the way to the end of the video. It always means a lot to me when students do that. And don't forget to come back next week when I will be talking about speaking question 2 on the TOEFL. Take care until then. Bye-bye.